Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
We, the jury, find George Zimmerman not guilty.
The verdict in the George Zimmerman trial, leaving a nation divided and wondering what's next. Hello and welcome to The Wrap, a review of last week's most important, intriguing, strange, and inspirational news happenings. Up front in this edition, what else but the fallout from the not guilty verdict in the trial of the man who killed teenager Trayvon Martin. A couple of late-breaking developments. First, President Obama made a surprise visit to the White House briefing room. 6 days after the Zimmerman verdict, he spoke in a very personal way about his own experiences being profiled and feared merely because of the color of his skin.
When you think about why, in the African American community at least, there's a lot of pain around what happened here, I think it's important to recognize that the African American community is looking at this issue through a set of experiences and a history.
Before the president's poignant remarks, the parents of Trayvon Martin finally spoke publicly about their reaction to the Zimmerman verdict. Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin revealing their feelings first on the CBS This Morning program. Ms. Fulton admits she was stunned by the jury's decision.
I was in a bit of shock. I thought surely that he would be found guilty of second-degree murder, manslaughter at the least. But
both parents say they deeply resent the attempts to portray their son as some kind of thug who was itching for a fight the night he had his fatal encounter with Zimmerman. It didn't take long after the jury in Sanford, Florida cleared George Zimmerman of all charges. Protesters from around the nation hit the streets. The chattering class was all over television with reactions to the trial, the verdict, and thoughts on its deeper meaning for America.
I think this is, for many Americans, just another piece of evidence of the incontrovertible contempt that this nation often shows for black men.
It does feel to me as though Trayvon Martin was tried and found guilty for his own death.
As the prosecution become persecution, do we focus on ways that we improve our country rather than ways that we tear it apart?
Among TV legal analysts and others, there seemed to be general consensus that the prosecution was badly outplayed in court by Zimmerman's defense team.
I think the prosecution of George Zimmerman was disgraceful.
And in a case where prosecutors were not afraid to show autopsy photos and bloody head injuries and a bullet wound, but they were too squeamish to talk about race.
I mean, there's clearly some major errors the prosecution made in this case.
The tone of the post-trial analysis generally upbeat from conservative commentators. The far-right flamethrower Ann Coulter tweeting, "Hallelujah," right after the verdict was announced. Fox News' Bill O'Reilly thought it appropriate that Zimmerman was exonerated.
You don't convict someone of murder because he shows poor judgment or because he racially profiles.
Folks on the far left, like the radical Chicago priest Father Michael Flager, were highly and loudly critical of the trial's outcome.
I refuse to ignore the race in this issue. We are not in a post-racial area. In fact, racism has a second breath in America today. And last night, it got new oxygen.
George Zimmerman.
One of the jurors made news by going on the Anderson Cooper program on CNN. Shockingly, she said Trayvon Martin played a big role in his own death.
When George confronted him, and he could have walked away and gone home. He didn't have to do whatever he did and come back and be in a fight.
A group of 4 other jurors released a statement the following day, distancing themselves from the comments of the juror who went on CNN. In the wake of the verdict, it appears the focus, especially from the Obama administration, will be to go after stand-your-ground laws, like the one in Florida. So said Attorney General Eric Holder at the NAACP convention in Orlando.
It's time to question laws that senselessly expand the concept of self-defense and sow dangerous conflict in our neighborhoods.
Robert Zimmerman went on TV to acknowledge that his brother George is now a man with a huge target on his back, comments which brought out the sardonic wit of Comedy Central's Stephen Colbert.
Yes, he'll be looking around his shoulder. I mean, can you imagine feeling like you're being followed? Everyone just assuming you're a criminal? I mean, if I were him, I'd wear something to hide my face.
To add insult to injury, the Zimmerman defense team has submitted a request to have the state of Florida pick up the tab for its legal fees. He may legally be a free man, but in reality, George Zimmerman very much a prisoner of his own notoriety. He's reportedly laying very low in an undisclosed location, afraid to be out in public because of the many death threats made against him. Also, the 6 women who made up the Zimmerman trial jury are apparently suffering some emotional anguish. They're being offered counseling from the Seminole County Mental Health Agency. The Zimmerman verdict has caused all kinds of reactions, including some seemingly offbeat or downright nutty ones. Outside the New Era Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, the signboard accuses the Zimmerman jury of perpetuating racism. The far-right online newsletter, ConservativeBites.com, has published headlines calling shooting victim Trayvon Martin a punk, and declaring he was guilty of a hate crime for striking Zimmerman because he supposedly thought the neighborhood watchman was gay. And Professor Anthea Butler of the Religious Studies program at the University of Pennsylvania wrote an inflammatory op-ed for religiondispatches.org. In it, she said, quote, "I know that this American God ain't my God. As a matter of fact, I think he's a white racist God with a problem." An awful tragedy headlines our news from across the globe. In a small village near the city of Patna in southern India, at least 22 children have died from eating a free school lunch. Medical officials say the food was tainted with an insecticide. The kids between the ages of 5 and 12 fell ill and started vomiting after eating the meal, consisting of rice, lentils, soybeans, and potatoes. More than 50 children rushed to the hospital where nearly 24 were pronounced dead. Another 25 kids had to be hospitalized for treatment, 3 of them listed in serious condition. An investigation is underway to figure out how the chemicals ended up in the food. Well, there's still more ahead on the wrap. I'll have a report explaining why the Motor City is now the Broke City. And we'll try to explain what causes the medical condition ghetto booty, and why one Tennessee woman is not happy about that diagnosis. This week in history for July 14th through the 20th. The happiest place on earth, Disneyland, opened in 1955. The $17 million theme park built on a former orange grove in Anaheim, California. Today, the park hosts more than 14 million visitors a year, who spend about $3 billion. In 1799, during Napoleon's Egyptian campaign, a French soldier finds a black slab of stone near the town of Rosetta. It's inscribed with ancient writing which held the key to understanding hieroglyphics, the language of the biblical pharaohs, untranslatable for nearly 2,000 years. The first black Miss America, Vanessa Williams, became the first winner in the pageant's history to resign this week in 1984. She gave up her crown after Penthouse magazine announced plans to publish nude photos she posed for a few years earlier. It was on July 20th, 1969 that man first landed on the moon. And about an hour later, astronaut Neil Armstrong took that famous one small step for a man, a giant leap for mankind. My, how the mighty have fallen. Detroit was once the very symbol of this nation's industrial might. But now the Motor City has the distinction of being the largest American city ever to file for bankruptcy protection. However, that filing has been put on hold by a circuit court judge in Lansing, Michigan's capital city. The judge ruling that Detroit's bankruptcy declaration is unconstitutional because it would likely require cuts to city employee pensions, something prohibited by state law. Nevertheless, after being rumored for months, on Thursday, July 18th, it became fact. With its population dropping like a rock, with steeply declining revenues, rampant crime, and unemployment, Detroit has finally been backed into a financial corner. Michigan Governor Rick Snyder says bankruptcy is the only feasible way out. The move may mean more layoffs of city workers, a sell-off of assets, higher fees, and further reductions in services like trash collection and snow plowing. How the judge's ruling will affect efforts to fix Detroit's financial mess is anybody's guess right now. In Tennessee, a condition nicknamed ghetto booty is causing a bit of a ruckus. That's the diagnosis Terry Ragland got from her doctor as the reason for her severe lower back pain. Now, the medical term for her condition, which involves curvature of the lower spine that makes the butt stick out, is lumbar lordosis. Ms. Ragland's doctor, Tim Sweo, says he was trying to translate the diagnosis into something less technical. Ragland has filed a complaint with the Tennessee Department of Health, which will investigate to determine if Dr. Sweo should be disciplined. A new study from medical researchers in Canada says women who work night shifts for 30 years or more might have double the risk of getting breast cancer. Those researchers think decreased light exposure during night shifts, which many nurses work, slows production of melatonin. That may lead to cancer, diabetes, depression, or heart disease. Some medical experts are downplaying the study, warning that the higher risk of cancer has not yet been confirmed. Here in the U.S., the American Cancer Society expects about 1.7 million new cases of the disease to be diagnosed this year, with nearly 600,000 Americans projected to die from the various cancers. That's over 1,500 folks a day. This past week, the sports network, ESPN, had its annual auction to raise money for the Jimmy V Foundation, named in honor of the late college basketball coach Jimmy Valvano. On this, the 20th anniversary of his remarkable, moving farewell speech, here's Valvano speaking at a big gathering of sports luminaries, where the formation of the foundation was first announced.
I just got one last thing. I urge all of you, to enjoy your life, the precious moments you have. We need your help. I need your help. We need money for research. It may not save my life. It may save my children's lives. It may save someone you love. Before, and I'm going to say it again, cancer can take away all my physical abilities. It cannot touch my mind, it cannot touch my heart, and it cannot touch my soul.
Valvano lost his cancer battle about a month after that speech. Since 1993, more than $110 million has been raised for cancer research through the Jimmy V Foundation. When the rap continues, I'm going to put in my 2 cents worth with some straight talk about black men. And later, we'll view the world for a while through the eyes of a child. Hey folks, time to check this out. Oh, baby. According to some studies worldwide, an average of 12 newborns a day are given to the wrong parents. Well, no wonder they call it a happy meal. Did you know that about 40% of McDonald's profits come from the sale of those meal boxes for kids? And finally, check this. According to company figures, Michael Jordan gets paid more from Nike per year than the wages of all workers in the company's main factory in Malaysia combined. His airness nothing refer to him now as his richness. This week, here's my 2 cents on young black men. It's a subject I have personal knowledge of. I used to be one and have 2 black sons and a grandson. With the verdict in the George Zimmerman trial, there's been increased focus on current-day threats to black men in their teens to mid-20s. The killing of Trayvon Martin was indeed a tragedy, But vigilantes like Zimmerman pose a tiny threat to young African American men. The greater threat by far comes from other young black men, especially in the nation's inner cities. Here's the reality of urban crime in the year 2013. Lots of black men are people to fear. The threat is real, not from most, but from some. There's an old saying that seems apropos. We have met the enemy and he is us. Chicago, for example, has had a veritable epidemic of black-on-black shootings and murders over the past couple of years, most of them young people. During the 18-day span of the Zimmerman trial, 4 kids were murdered in Chi-Town, ranging in age from 16 to 5. The youngest in that group, 5-year-old Sterling Sims, killed in a double murder that also claimed the life of his mother. They were gunned down at home. Police believe the motive was robbery. The suspect, an 18-year-old black male. About 7,000 blacks are killed in the U.S. each year, almost half the national total. Slightly more than half of the black murder victims, young men in their late teens and 20s. The shooting death of Trayvon Martin has dominated the national conversation the past 18 months. There has been wall-to-wall coverage in the media, protest marches from coast to coast. Heck, even President Obama has made a number of references to the incident. How much have you heard about the carnage going on in the streets of America's urban areas? Blacks killing blacks over drugs, money, gang disputes? Here's the deal. There's something seriously wrong with a number of our young black men. No need to sugarcoat it. So many of them are or undereducated, lacking the training and skills to find anything but menial work in today's high-tech, high-stress job market. The nation's prisons and jails are busting at the seams with young black men, mostly doing hard time for drug crimes, assault, murder, and robbery. There are more black men right now behind bars than there were slaves in 1850. And hey, this I gotta mention. Amoral behavior runs rampant among a segment of the young black male population. They kill, steal, do dope, listen to obscene rap music, run around with their pants sagging off their butts, will stand in line for hours to buy the latest pair of Air Jordan sneakers, but visit a library, go to church, forget it. Of those who are fathers, 75% are so-called baby daddies, unwed to the mothers and often uninvolved in any meaningful way in their children's lives. Collectively, these young men are part of a growing underclass of Americans who likely will never contribute in any significant or positive way to our society. Now, I hope I haven't completely bummed you out. There are some bright spots amid the gloom and doom. The number of young black men in college has been going up slowly but steadily over the past decade or so. There are some truly outstanding young black men out there, dynamic, inspired. But we have to start to have an honest and sustained conversation about the plight of many of our young black guys. We need a concerted national effort to get these young men in school, out of prison, to have them toting briefcases and laptops, not pistols and assault rifles, to get them high on religion, not on dope. Let's focus less on stand your ground and more on getting these young people to stand up and be counted as good guys, as good citizens. And that's my 2 cents for this week. Still to come, this week's Sights and Sounds segment, but first, a word from the Word.
Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. Lord, I'm amazed by you. How you love me. You paint the morning sky with miracles in mind. My hope will always stand, for you hold me
In Sights and Sounds for this week, let's go to the park and watch some kids at play, and listen to a beautiful song from the year 2000 flick, The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
When you're feeling like you're out of touch, all alone and lost and drifting through the night, just think back to younger harder times, and you'll find the light. See the world for a while through the eyes of a child. You will see so much wonder in your day. All that you believed when you were small are still the dreams that guide us all. The mirror shows you've grown, but reflects the child in you. If you're looking out on stormy skies and empty fields, afraid to give it one more try, see yourself above the clouds. Spread your wings and fly. See the world for a while through the eyes of a child. You will see so much wonder in your day. All that you believed when you were small are still the dreams you carry on. Imagine what could be if you just believed in you. When you were young, who did you wanna be? What is stopping you from that dream? Oh, this is who you are. Don't be afraid. The child in you will never fade. The power to believe is yours alone. No one could ever take that child There's one thing I could say to you, it would be to try to make your dream come true. You can do almost anything if you just believe. If you just believe.